I'm here tonight as a substitute, as has just been said. I'm standing in to represent John Rhys-Evans and his campaign. And the reason why, it's very touched on, John's got family issues, his father passed away, and I think despite the heat of a political campaign, we can all pass on our sympathy to John and the family at this difficult time. And I certainly respect the fact that he's still running this campaign, still involved and coming back despite this awful news that he's had to suffer. You may ask why John asked me in particular to cover him. Well, this in itself shows the man. Because we are not identical twins. We're not on the same page in many ways. We are two people from very different backgrounds and two different political upbringings. But what it does prove is that he believes in leadership, pulling people together and making a real difference. And that is the mark of the man. This is a man who won me over. I didn't agree with everything he said before, but his warmth, his intelligence, his commitment, his integrity, his decency has won me over. His decency that has come under attack. His values have been questioned during this campaign. I say they should be respected. And this is coming from someone who doesn't come from the same page on these things as him at all. But I respect John's faith and his backgrounds. He's formed a movement of direct democracy that can really make a difference. It will involve all of us in a great new insurgency against the state and the powers that be. Let's start a spark tonight that changes our party, changes our country, and brings politics and democracy back to the people where it should never have left from. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see so many people going around the country. This has been the case all along. This is not a party that is dying. It is a party full of people who are very concerned about its future. Now, I believe we have an extraordinary mission ahead of us. But first of all, I would talk about the party. When it comes to the party, we must never ever again stand aside in an election. We must be a proper political party. No standing aside for another party. Secondly, we've got to have proper links between the central party and the local parties, because I'm hearing all the time people are fed up of not being listened to. The best form of direct democracy is actually going and listening to people, hearing what they think about the party. Thirdly, with the party, we've got to make sure that we don't have to constantly put up with what is an incredibly hostile media. It's not going to get any less hostile. We've got to take a leaf out of Trump's book and of what they do in Europe too, and develop our own media. It is very easy to do, right? These are things for the party going forward. We've got to be fit for purpose. But what actually is the point of this? What is the mission? Well, we have got to think big, ladies and gentlemen, like we started. We thought big when it came to coming out of the EU, and everyone thought we were crazy. Well, we weren't, but what happened? We have got to be the saviours of our democracy, nothing less. We have got to be the party that stands for the country, the reborn nation, a nation once again, not just one in name. We have got to stand up for its values, we've got to stand up for its laws, we've got to stand up for all the things that have made this country great. We have got to rebuild confidence and patriotism in this country again. That is our mission in UKIP. The Tories won't, Labour won't. It is up to us, and we have got to do it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. David Coleman.
Hello, London. Nice to see you all again. I'm sure we all agree the last thing we need is another election. But we have to accept we're in a trough. And the people who led us here should not be the people who lead us out again. And it's very nice what Peter said, but I'm afraid he was one of those people. We have an opportunity with a collapsing Conservative Party, a Labour Party facing in two directions at once on Brexit, who makes UKIP as relevant as ever. Someone has to write the Tory manifesto. We've been doing it for them, so we might as well continue to do it. Labour is currently having it written in Pyongyang by Kim Jong-un, so they don't need our help. What we need to reform the party, a professional board, and an NEC democratic element. Not people elected on 100 words and a photograph taken when they left the Royal Navy in 1945, but something that's being checked, as we all have to be checked as members of the European Parliament or whatever. We can't have the sort of amateur night at the proms we've got at the moment, which has led to catastrophe. We need a permanent manifesto ready for a snap election, not something scribbled on the back of a beer mat 2 weeks before we actually have to go to the polls. That's ridiculous, and that's what happened before. And the last manifesto, which I'm afraid my good friend here overlooked, or was overlooking, we had 2 versions of the Barnett formula, which moves the money up to Scotland. On one page we had Suzanne Evans saying we should get rid of it. On the other page it was the Patrick Offensive reform it all the other way around. Well, that is impossible. I cannot run an election like that in Scotland. Now, I have done everything that Nigel does in England. I fought on television against the big beasts, Nicholas Sturgeon, Alex Salmon, Ruth Davidson, and I have won and done well in arguments with those people. And if I can represent our party there, then I should be able to do it in the rest of the United Kingdom.
And you've done that failure. And you've done that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening. If you can't hear me at the back, just shout out, because I don't think these microphones are working anyway. My name's Marion Mason. I've been a member of UKIP for 10 years. I was a sitting councillor when I crossed over in 2008. I was a Conservative. Excuse the dirty words, but I was many of us were, I know. I had become increasingly perturbed at the European Union's control of our country, which I know a lot of us did, which pushed me to join UKIP. I've actually been a very active member since joining, and I've held many positions: chairman, PPC, Police and Crime Commission candidate, to name but a few. I am a patron of UKIP, and I'm currently on the NEC. Sorry, I pause when I say that, because you know we are getting a bit of reaction if you're on the NEC. I want UKIP to go forward. We had a referendum, and it would not have happened without UKIP. So some people are calling the 23rd of June 2016 our Independence Day. It is, but we've got to keep it going. We have to be ready and watching that there's no watering down of Brexit. Brexit means exit at the date we want it, and not any further payment. So that's why UKIP is needed, as well as everything else I will be talking about and you will be asking questions about. But that is why we are needed now more than ever. Sadly, some of our members, or now ex-members, think we're not fit for purpose, and I'm afraid they've shown that by walking and going back to Conservatives. We need to bring them back as well. We need to be attractive to the British voter. Our policies, the vast majority of them, will show that we are, but we have to ensure that they're out there. As a nurse and involved in the NHS, etc., I would actually like to see UKIP become the champion of the NHS, amongst other things. So I await your questions shortly.
Thank you, Marion. David Curtin.
Okay, thank you, Freddie. Okay, I was outside Parliament a couple of weeks ago with a photographer to get my photograph taken, and some of you got some leaflets on your chairs, and you might see this lovely photograph of my face on the front of it. So we were doing that, as many of candidates do. But when we got there was a protest, and there were some people holding big EU flags outside Parliament. And I had a Union Jack with me to get my photograph taken. So I stood in front of this protest and held out my Union Jack, and these people got very annoyed with me, and they told me to go away. I said, well, I can hold my flag up here, it's my country and my flag, I'll do what I want with it. The photographer said to them, look, why don't you just all face it? You've lost, we're leaving, we've had the vote, 17.4 million people voted to leave. But they said back, with absolute sincerity, no, we're going to keep you in. We're going to make sure that you stay in the EU. And one of them was a German, one was an Italian, and one was Welsh, which is a strange combination of people to be protesting. But there we go. The point I'm making here is that, of course, there are some people who do believe that they can keep us in. And every week goes by, and I do these hustings, I've been doing them for 7 weeks, it seems another person comes out and they say, we're going to keep you in. It was Philip Hammond a couple of weeks ago, and it was Chuck Rumuna, and I was on the John Gaunt show at the weekend telling everyone why he was wrong. Of course he is. And then today, or a couple of days ago, the whole Labour Party seemed to say, well, they're going to keep you in. Is that the time? All right. So we've got to keep Brexit at the top of our agenda, but we've also got to think as a party about where we go politically. And the leader sets the political tone. And there's two things I think are very key, which will set us apart from all the other parties. One is education. Making sure our education works for our own young people, because we need to be self-sufficient in skills. The second is fighting cultural Marxism. I will say more about that as we go along. But some of the same people...
As you will very soon. Thank you, David.
Please ask your questions. Thank you very much.
Jane Collins.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, when you listen to us and when you actually look at your ballot papers and make your decision, that will be one of the most important decisions you make in the history of UKIP. You vote the wrong person in this time, UKIP is finished. Now, what is the role of a party leader? It's actually to provide political direction and stability. You have to have somebody with credibility. And if you get involved too much with the admin, you can't do that. You put in place a very talented, capable party chair. That leaves you free to actually direct the political agenda for your party. For me, I would put a team of talented people, new people, in place as management, accountable to a new reformed NEC. It's very important to have a vision within UKIP, and your vision has got to be achievable. I've been to quite a few hustings now and I've heard some fantastic plans, but I'd like to know where we're getting the money from. I'd like to know how UKIP is going to put all these amazing plans that people have without going bankrupt. I've also heard from this end of the table more of the same. More of the same from people who in 2017 delivered us one of the worst election results we have had in years. For me, you've got to have new people in, new people with vision, but you've also got to have somebody sensible. UKIP's like a wagon, it's got 4 wheels. You take all 4 wheels off that wagon, it will stop rolling. So what you have to do is gradually make the changes. Gradually bring members back into UKIP, attract more donors, and we will make it a viable campaigning political party again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Aidan, are you ready? Aidan Powellsland.
Okay, so the tyranny that I spoke of was poverty, and if you vote for me as leader, I will make war on it. So concretely, how am I going to do that? More than any of the other candidates, I would reduce tax. I would do that by £82 billion. This is not bread and circuses tax reductions I'm talking about. This is tax reductions on businesses. What we need to do in order to defeat poverty is become as rich as it is possible for any kingdom to be. The second thing I would do is I would deregulate, I would reduce the octopus of bureaucracy that is devouring our industry and services. For example, I would repeal 80% of the 21 clusters of employment regulations passed since 1963. The third thing I would do is I would revolutionise housing. I have a 3-pronged way of doing that. The fourth thing I would do is embrace free trade ardently. No more ardently than Bill would, but who knows whether it's more ardently than John would. The fifth thing I would do is reform welfare. 63% of our households receive benefits. I would reduce that by 40%, 114 billion a year, and only by these very drastic measures would we have the funds to pursue the many other good things we should be pursuing.
Thank you, Aidan. You'll have much more time. Anne-Marie Waters.
Good evening, everyone. What a relief to be here. I almost wasn't. And I almost wasn't, because once again my candidacy was called into account. Isn't it a shame that those who oppose me rarely oppose me on the grounds of my views on the NHS, for example, or what I say about the welfare state, or what I say about how we need to tackle the EU and get out of it, or any proposal I have for reform of law and order, or indeed for constitutional reform, which I think we should discuss post-Brexit. None of this debate occurs. We merely have another round of smearing. Now, what the role of the leader is not to sort out the NEC, or the public doesn't care if you sort out the NEC. What the public wants is a clear and concise vision of what kind of Britain UKIP aspires to build. We need to present that. We want a sovereign country that controls its own borders and has its own parliament, where can trade of its own volition. We want a place that is prosperous and that is safe, and where we have accountable and efficient public services. We want a democracy. We want to preserve our culture and our democracy against any and everything that threatens it. This is the vision, a broad vision, that we must present to the people. But they have to trust you. They have to trust you. And of course, when other people attempt to silence you, they can scarcely even hear you. But how you gain the trust of an electorate is by standing your ground and by continuing to tell the truth, no matter what opposition you face. And I leave you with this thought, and that is that if people with power are trying to silence a person, my advice is that you need to listen to that person. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Henry Bolton.
Good evening, everybody. A little while ago, I was maintaining the best traditions of UKIP, and I was in a bar in Brussels. I fell into conversation with two local Belgians. One was an amateur military historian. I don't know about the other one. But the other one said, he said, I wouldn't be too sure that Britain will leave the European Union. It's all a lot of fuss about nothing. This was before the referendum. But the other one said, I wouldn't be too certain about that. There's a lion in Britain. Twice it's come to the aid of little Belgium. For some years now it's been lying quietly. We don't really know why, but that's the case. Maybe it's tired, or maybe it's nearing the end of its days. We just don't know. But it is a British lion, and it is stirring. And when the British lion stirs, the rest of us would be sensible to sit up and listen. And indeed, on the 23rd of June, as we know, last year, the British lion did stir. It roared and it pulled at its chains and made it very clear that it wants to be free. It has for some time been idle, however, and we must rouse ourselves, we must organise, and we must lead. Failure in this is not an option. Nobody else is going to do this if UKIP does not. Looking forward, under my leadership, Brexit will become a moral responsibility for this party. We brought about the referendum, we were instrumental in its result, and we have dropped the ball. We need to pick it up and be an effective opposition, pro-Brexit opposition. We've got a neglected population with no voice. That is a political opportunity that so far we have failed to exploit. Under my leadership, we will develop a firm platform to deliver our politics, and we will, I'm trying to abbreviate it now, we will establish a new governance body with representation from the regions, and it will elect its own chair, not appointed by the leader. We will identify and develop potential amongst our candidates, and we will conduct longer-term planning.
Indeed you will. Thank you, Henry. And Ben Walker.
I was going to say the timer's gone. I haven't even started. Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would hope that most of you know who I am now. I think that I keep going over the same old spiel, you know who I am, yada yada, but I think you might know who I am now. It's lovely to be back in London. This is the second time being here, so thank you for inviting me again. So who am I? Very quickly, I am a small state, low tax libertarian. That is it. I want regulation, but not much, just a little bit with teeth, okay? That is me. I am ex-Royal Navy, and I served in the Afghan War. I've been in UKIP since 2011, and I am a grassroots man. I have been a town councillor, I have been a district councillor, and I've been a vice chair of a local authority, and I've been a mayor twice, and that is where UKIP needs to be. We need to be focusing our efforts at the grassroots. I don't want to see glossy emails coming down from the top telling us how wonderful our party is and how great they're doing, when the truth is we are broken. And many candidates will talk to you about their visions. That's great, I agree with them, but the truth is UKIP as a party is broken and it needs reform. So for me, day one, elected as leader, I would sack the current chair. He needs to go, and he should have gone at Stoke. So, second, then I want to get the MEPs on board. If we're not getting them on board, then I don't have a lot of time for them either. You know, we need to be united moving forward. If we are not, then we are still broken. So, I also want to see massive reform throughout the party itself. You know, not just tinkering around the edges. We have a sound structure so far. I want to see regional representation on the NEC. I want to see the NEC tinkered around with, and I want to see our constitution rewritten. All of these things, of which I can't talk to you about now because there is not enough time, they need to be done. We need to fix ourselves. Only if we fix our own house can we attempt to fix the one in London. Thank you very much.